Welcome to the AI Corner. I'm your host, Mike Bailey, here to spotlight the people shaping New Zealand's AI future. In today's episode, we're speaking with Taru Peters-Naug. Taru is the founder of Do AI, a product lab helping Kiwi businesses move from AI strategy to real-world impact. With a background leading data science at ANZ and shaping data strategy at Squirrel, he's now focused on building practical AI solutions that unlock growth and smarter decision-making. Welcome to the pod, Taru.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I've only heard great things about you, so looking forward to this.
I appreciate that. So what first you interested in AI and data?
Probably a funny story. So I studied robotics. I studied mechatronics engineering, so I don't think I can quite call myself an engineer anymore. But I studied it because I liked solving problems, and it seemed like it was building cool things. Like the most I could build at university was building robots. But post-uni, my grades weren't great, to be honest, and I stumbled into the world of finance. I actually went to the wrong job interview and luckily got hired for a job as a digital graduate at ANZ. And then there's some really cool learning I did at the start there. Like one of the cool things, probably early in my career, is I was told to like sort of forget what I studied and make sure that I don't just try to apply it to everything, because it would just apply itself naturally. So I learned a bit about design, which has really shaped the way Do AI works, which I'm sure we'll talk about soon. But long story short, there wasn't any AI or data science at ANZ. And I spotted that. I suggested that we start a proof of concept, built a platform, built some models, and I was supported along the way by some awesome managers. And within a year of my first job, I'd started the data science team alongside another grad. I think it was just like timing. It was a good time to be in the space. The bank hadn't done it yet in New Zealand. And obviously, there was heaps of value to be had. So when you get to the level where no matter what you build, it's going to produce value, it's hard to say no to it. So that was my stumble into the world of AI. I wouldn't say it was intentional, to be honest.
Wow, awesome. And then, so you got stuck into data at ANZ, and then you got into a data science kind of led path. And I mean, that naturally flows into AI these days, doesn't it?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I think so. My background in data science, I did some work with natural language throughout the time there, then machine learning, obviously. But the world of generative AI now and large language models, I don't know what the history of work leads to you being great in it. Is if I look at like my skill set and why I think I fit, it's partly because I was a musician growing up. So like the creativity mixed with maths has been like a really good fit with me. But I wouldn't say that, I don't know that data scientists naturally evolve into modern day AI people. I almost think as an organization, you shouldn't park it with your data scientists and your AI team. Generative AI should be parked with like product specialists, not parked, but a big part of it's educating like a wide part of the organization rather than being like the technical people over there will sort it out. They should democratize technology more than anything else. So yeah, as much as I was a data scientist and now I'm an AI, I've been in AI, as you'd call it, for 10 years. I don't know if there's a natural pathway anymore.
Yeah. And so tell us about the leap from working at ANZ and Squirrel and so forth into starting your own business.
So it probably goes all the way back to like what motivates me. Because I'm really motivated by building things and solving problems. I'd ended up in finance for a long period of time, both in the bank and then challenging the bank at Squirrel, which I really believed in. But I just wanted to solve more problems. And I was a pretty strong believer that what this new wave of AI was doing is it should allow more people to solve problems. Near the end of this isn't my first startup. My first one was a product. But near the end of my time in corporate, I was going to a lot of conferences. And I'd say 80% of the talks were about what should your AI strategy be? What are the risks? This is why you shouldn't do it. This is how much you need to control it. And maybe 10% was like, this is how you actually do something with it. And I was just like, something needs to happen here. Or this was like a year in, and I think like New Zealand was going to fall behind. It still is falling behind. But if all of the focus in the country is around the risks and governance and strategy, and no one's doing it, we're going to have some issues.
Can I ask, it might be a contrarian point to what you're saying, but I guess where I'm seeing things is that if we jump straight into building, then we're essentially putting the cart before the horse sometimes. And I'm not saying that you're necessarily jumping into building without going through support for strategy or education and enablement. But do you feel that jumping into building more so from day one is the way to go? Or do you think you're better off working with clients who have an established strategy, and I use established with quotation marks because what does that really even mean these days? But at least have leadership alignment and some form of change management process in motion. And that doesn't have to be too onerous, but at least people getting aligned on what this all is and what it could do to them and to their roles and the enablement required. But how do you think about those pieces of the puzzle playing together?
That's a really good point. I'm happy to talk about this. We run like a readiness assessment, which I formulated a while ago, which goes through like all these things in your organization. There's 7 pillars. I'm not going to go through them right now. But my long story short is, say you're a big corporate, like a bank or a government organization, et cetera, you've been through this before. You've got a data policy, you know privacy, you know that you can deploy models or you can deploy things in a box in the cloud, you can keep it safe. Just take those principles, take safety first, and pick it up and put it over here for AI. I don't think, and then when I say build first, I'd say probably experiment for those big corporates. It's like you can't stop yourself from experimenting because you've got all this stuff that you think you need to get through first. So for the big corporates, it's you're ready to experiment, keep it safe, and follow your old principles. Everyone who's the most scared about privacy and data, they've probably put in heaps of controls on privacy and data before. If you think of generative AI, once you deploy it in the cloud in your own environment, your own model, it's the same as any other piece of functionality that transforms data. And then if you think of it that way, you can hop down that road of experimentation a lot faster than being like, what exactly do we need to do? There is AI policies about, I think if you stick to your values, you stay responsible, you know what you're trying to do, you keep it in that box to start, there's nothing stopping you. And then on the side where it's maybe you haven't got those policies yet, you've never looked at deploying your own custom tech, you've got off-the-shelf platforms, the pathway to deploying your own thing and getting it moving is not super hard anymore. And then the other side of it is pick use cases that don't need to be private on. Pick use cases that you can use a ChatGPT business license and be comfortable with and move from there. But my big thing is just get moving. I think last 3-4 months, company's been around for about 1.5 years. I've really seen like a tick over into, we've actually got all these ideas. How do we actually get started? And I've had a lot more engagement there. Whereas the first year was a lot of, help me write a strategy paper. Let's think about a pilot, et cetera. But it really does feel like that. The wheel is turning a bit, or people are sort of being like, it's there already. Why don't we get our hands on it too?
Awesome. The floodgates are opening, which is really good to hear. So why do you think a lot of those businesses do struggle to kind of pick up their policies or their legacy infrastructure, again, not necessarily systems, but why do you think it takes someone like yourself to encourage or motivate or influence these businesses to just get going? Like, what is that apathy that's driving that?
I think if you take like a big step back from AI and just into like technology in general, this technology isn't that old. So those big companies, maybe in like the last decade, they have sort of noticed it, and some of them have like an innovation sphere. So they've got like an innovation team. So you're pretty much just, your job is to look at new tech and how it applies. I think with AI and this world, I'd say it's just in the innovation sphere. So it's on the edge of what companies are focused on. And my thinking, and also why we started this, is why not outsource innovation? You've got people like me or data scientists or AI engineers are never going to understand the in and outs of the company. Treat it like a marketing engagement. Every like big corporate's got an outsourced marketing agency. You do your thing. You trust the marketing agency to stay the edge of what marketing is. Trust your outsourced AI team to stay the edge of what AI is, and you bring your problems to the table and work with them to solve them. I don't think it's new that it's slow to pick it up. I think it's just, if you don't pick it up, there's probably a bigger risk in getting left behind than there was before.
Totally. I think the asymmetric upside of at least testing, experimenting, and trying this technology far exceeds the asymmetric downside. You've got to take that punt at the end of the day. And
the iteration loop is so much faster than it used to be. You can experiment so much quicker and get results so much quicker.
Absolutely. So do AI, you're not just a consultancy, you're a product lab as far as I can see, in part, I guess, venture partner. Is that fair?
We're actually trying to avoid the word consultant. I'm not sure if we can, because that's like the natural fit. But we call ourselves a product lab and business partners. The big thing there is, again, I've been on the other side of consulting, and I don't want to pay for pieces of paper and strategy packs. I don't want us to ever be providing that. But yeah, so product lab means we build product alongside founders or companies. And the business partnership is, again, focused on building something for your business. The caveat there, or the rule that we follow, is we'll never ever charge by the hour. We charge for like a piece of value or a milestone. And you say, we both agree on, this is what we're trying to do. This is how much we value it and you value it. This is how much you pay for it. And then the flip side for founders is we do sweat equity as well. So if we have like a set of beliefs, and if we really believe in an idea and you can't really fund it yourself, we'll step in and see if we can make something work.
Wicked. And so you mentioned founders. Is that your target market and who you're going after?
Yeah. I think, well, founders and businesses. So I think that in general, so if I go back to what I think we work best with, or data scientists or technical people work best with, is people who really understand their problem and ideas, problem and market. This comes back to my first stint was in a design team and human-centered design. I've adapted it to human-centered AI. So if you understand your problem, you understand your customers, we just bring a toolkit to the table and help you solve it. So within a business, I think it's really easy to find those businesses who we know this problem, we just need this one little AI bit that we can't quite do. Let's get you to fix it. And then on the founder side, the type of founder that we look for, who I think is underserved, is someone who's lived and breathed a problem for a while, or lived and breathed a problem and has people around them or knows the market really well. And they just don't quite have the technical nuance to turn that into a big idea. The other big thing there is I've always wanted to be a founder. I've been a founder before. I'm a founder now. Now, this time it was with 2 kids. I'm in a mortgage. And I know it's pretty tricky to do that. So trying to really lower the barrier to entry for founders. So we're saying 2 weeks, 20K, we'll get your idea out the door. That's supposed to be fits in the school holidays. And that 20K is hopefully be sourceable by angel investors. Although my last month has proven that, angel investors in New Zealand, I don't think are quite ready to invest in ideas. They're much more ready to invest in pretty much fully formed companies that would be seed rounds overseas.
Fascinating. And I suppose what's the sort of insight? Is that from helping other organizations raise capital? Is that your own journey to raise capital or just conversations?
It's from helping other organizations to raise capital. I think the big thing that I've heard from a few angel investors is we expect the founder to quit their job and this is all they do. Where I think people who have these ideas can't always quit their job. That doesn't mean they don't have good ideas. It doesn't mean they couldn't execute, but they don't have an avenue to get that idea into the world at the moment. Yeah, I think so. If I've been to a lot of angel events as well, and the successful pitches are all companies that are this is our current ARR. We have this many customers. We have this many signed up. We want $500,000. There's not a lot down the other end of the scale which say, this is the idea I've got. This is my background. I just need a bit to get it out the door. I think angels expect people to do that themselves, which is the whole privilege of starting a startup. I really want to get rid of that. And when I left Wellington, there were so many startups around. Now that I'm back, it's not as much as it used to be. So I just want to contribute if I can to that space.
Awesome. So I guess breaking it down a little bit further. So customer comes to you and AI strategy are not sort of irrelevant to yourself. If they've got a problem that they know intimately and you can see a world which AI can actually solve for that problem, then you'll jump in and partner. What happens with ongoing support for the maintenance of the model or the product that you've developed? What if they're looking for enablement or training? Do you sort of bring in peripheral services or do you have partners that you engage with?
Yeah, so that's a really good point. So we've understood that over our first year. So because a lot of our early work was in training and strategy, but we wanted to get to build, and we've understood that we need to solve that problem. So we do some of it, but I think you've already talked to Mark from 10 Past Tomorrow.
Yeah.
He is our education partner. So if a company isn't ready for us yet, we'll often pass them back to him. And we're developing a platform to allow companies to use online training across their company with Mark's course. So 10 Past Tomorrow gets you to the edge of being able to use off-the-shelf tools like ChatGPT, etc., as far as you can take them, which is really far, to be honest. And then we are that next step when you want to systemize it throughout your company. So education, build, and then that's us. And then support is an interesting one. We work with another company who actually sits right behind me called Telos, and they've built a really cool AI platform that is pretty much support as a service using AI. So when we build, we drop our code, we drop our product into Telos, or we start it in Telos and keep it there. And long story short is if you've got an issue, every issue is a ticket, no matter what. So we can turn a meeting, we can turn this call into a ticket. That ticket gets submitted to the AI. The AI turns it into tasks, then tries to fix it with code. So tries to actually code and change it. And then if it can't do it, it goes to an offshore developer. If they can't do it, it comes back onshore. But long story short is they've systemized support in a really cool way. And we believe in the build, and we believe that support is an awesome way to do it. So we're going to stick with that for now.
Okay. Sounds like you've got a pretty strong established ecosystem there, which means you're covering all bases, which is good to see. And I suppose one of the biggest questions that the audience will have will be, when you say pushing up against the boundaries of the off-the-shelf tools, and then it requires support from Do AI, can you give us some examples to bring that to life where a business might be thinking, we've cracked it, but we just need something else that's not quite available within ChatGPT or other?
I think the big one I'd say is as a business, you want a business version of AI. You don't want everyone to have their own individual flavor of it. So say you've got 5 receptionists, they're all replying to emails with AI. Rather than having each of them have a different type of prompt and email, you'd have across the business, we're going to have our branded version of AI. We're always going to stick to our values, make sure we always talk about this, this, and this. If a receptionist is booking an appointment, they have to have a time, use this calendar, make sure that you're sending it to the right person in the business. So all of that is like sort of a system prompt. And then systemizing it across the business. Step 1 is everyone's replying in the same language. Then taking the next step is really easy, being like, do you need those 5 receptionists to answer emails about appointments anymore? Now you can automate that as a business rather than maybe one person in the corner fiddling with it. So yeah, we really come in when you're like, let's take this one bit of value and spread it across a business. Or it's like, do you embed it in your product? So you've got a off-the-shelf product, or you've got a custom product you built over time. You want to embed AI functionality into that and not be pulling data out, copy-pasting and putting it back in. And you want to control for it. That's where we really come in.
I love that concept of branding the AI across your business. And I suppose without simplifying too much, is that in essence to you, like everything has the business's context and memory, and it's basically continuing to learn based on activity across the organization?
Yeah. And then if you get into like the agent world, is give each piece of AI. So if you like look at like a functionality map, you typically have like a little process box. So like some input data goes in, you do a process and something comes out. AI should be those little process boxes. It shouldn't be like this big bad thing that everything goes into and everything comes out of. So it's, yeah, how do you find those little boxes and deploy those in a way that they won't get left behind, but have them all consistently deliver like your business message or your business brand? Every business is going to have a flavor to it. Every business is going to be interacting with AI. It's, yeah, you've got to either systemize it internally or make sure that externally to your customers it's saying the right things at the right time. And it's not just ChatGPT with no flavor to it.
You raise a good point there around like the process box versus looking at everything for AI. And I do feel that that's one of the misunderstandings or ambiguity in the market at the moment is I look at a problem and there's an agent for that. And you're like, do we need, is AI even required there? Like, isn't that just automation or just some other piece of software that can support? How often are you getting problems presented to you and you go, yeah, AI isn't necessarily going to 10x your output here?
Very often. And I've got like a one-liner that I dig into really often here is that Chat AI or ChatGPT is an interface. AI is nowadays like a large language model, the way you talk to it is a user interface. That could have been 50 years ago a document, 20 years ago a computer screen, 5 years ago a phone app. All that it is an interface to other functionality. So you talk to it and then it calls other bits of functionality. So right now on this call, I click a button to leave the call. All that ChatGPT would do, or AI as an interface would do in this scenario, is it types something in and be like, leave the call. But it's still leaving the call by running that functionality. So the question you should always have it when you're looking at a use case as an organization is, am I using AI simply to interface with the existing functionality or specific functionality like automation, or is AI actually solving a problem? So when we like lay out a use case, we say what technology you're using very specifically and what functionality are you trying to do. Are you trying to summarize? Then yeah, it is an LLM. Are you trying to move data? Then no, it's not an LLM, but LLM is your interface into the functionality that you're trying to solve. So when companies look at like this big AI solving all their problems, it's, yeah, do you put it into their process box? You might have an AI interface over the top of everything, but you still need to solve these processes by itself, which is where like even machine learning, automation, the old world of AI, what it used to be called, is still super relevant nowadays.
Yeah, I think you've hit a really good point there, that summarizing or the interface or just moving information. I think most people are thinking or misconstrue AI as they think it's just moving information around. And that's where I get lost in conversations sometimes going, okay, that's not necessarily an agent. Maybe it's some form of like an AI workflow where think of like an N8N node where there's a small part of it is an LLM, and sure, we could consider this whole thing an agent, but it's not really at the end of the day. It's just an automation with a small amount of AI making sense of a small piece of data, which might only be 10% of this workflow in total.
Yeah, and like as an organization, I think the interesting side of this is like the big bad players like OpenAI, Claude, etc., are going to get better and better at this. And they're almost hiding the functionality they're doing behind the scenes. I wouldn't say they're hiding it, but you're not thinking about it, which is great user design, right? But as a business, you want to understand what it's doing, which means look at those specific function boxes, what data is getting moved, what's getting transformed, what's actually getting done. And you need to control for that. You can't let your AI control for all of that because that's your secret sauce. That's what makes you you. So you don't have to build it all, but at least understand it and control for it in prompts and control for it across the organization. The worst thing that could happen is you've got one oversight of AI and there's a specific bit of functionality that your organization does every day, but 20 different people do it, and they're going to do it 20 different ways because they're all using AI. It looks like it's working, but you're making 1 + 1 = 3 sometimes. That is probably the trap of just throwing it at everything.
Makes sense. And you mentioned data and you've got a data science background. What do you think is most understood by businesses about their data and how it works with AI?
What is most understood?
Most misunderstood?
Most misunderstood. Yes, I'd say it's, especially when it comes to language, it's what is generative, what's a language model, and what is logic and code. Like a common example is, like we get this email, I'm saying as a business, I get this email 20 times a day. If it's missing a number, I want to reply to it. The gut instinct is that throw an LLM at it, be like, is it missing the number? Reply to it if it's missing the number. But missing a number is just a string search and saying, in this string, is there a number of this many characters? Because it always follows the same rule. If not, automate an email back and template that email every time. That gives you so much more control than being like, just have AI reply to all these emails. And so I think it's the most misunderstood bit about generative AI specifically is around, do you apply it to everything with language or not? And then when it comes down to like machine learning, et cetera, it's when do you apply it? When do you not? And the big thing I think with machine learning is you need to be comfortable with, if there's an error to be made, you need to have a human take care of the errors. If there's no error, you have to be comfortable with the error boundaries to say, I'm comfortable with this, send it out the door.
Makes sense. And so if we point to some of the use cases that your team's built out, could you give us a sense of some projects that you're super proud of that your team have put together?
We've been around for about 2 years and a lot of things are under NDA, but one that we are owning going forward, so it's on that sweat equity side, so I'm happy to talk about it, is we're looking at plant nurseries. So plant nurseries grow plants and then they sell them off to landscapers or to the council, et cetera, or even just people like you and me if you want to buy 100 plants. But we're looking at, instead of someone always walking around, checking the plants, making sure they're healthy and counting them, is using a camera on the side of a quad bike or a cart and just going around, checking the health of all the plants, counting them every day, making sure they're healthy, and then feeding all of that back into the inventory and quoting system and point of sale system so that you no longer have a spreadsheet or input, you just have a camera going around the site. And then the great part would be, which we haven't quite got to yet, is you don't even need to scan stuff as you sell it. Like as they walk up to the counter, it's not usually walking up to a counter, it's as they drive the truck out of the shop, you can look at the back of the truck and say, this is what they've bought. That's not in an inventory anymore. That's gone. So that is a mix of AI vision, computer vision, LLMs behind the scenes, and then just classic automation in terms of inventory management.
Awesome.
But yeah, that's a cool one that's been on our radar for a while. And then, yeah, we're really passionate about health, the environment. So we really look for companies in those spaces. We have a few at the moment, but yeah, can't quite talk about them just yet.
No worries. And in terms of, you mentioned physical use case, computer vision, et cetera, to see what's happening in the world around us. Are you seeing a split between a lot of your work is more in that AI making sense of the real world, or is there a lot of kind of software type application, back-end process automation that you're working on as well?
There is a lot of back-end process and automation that's from that business partnership side. On the founder side, it's much wider. And there's been a lot of vision work on the founder side. And I've got a bit of a background in it, so does the rest of the team. So that's been like a really cool spot. But the other one we've done is running analysis. We look at someone running, no matter if they're running on a treadmill or not, so they can run past and we can say, are you running healthily or not? What could be wrong? But in that vision space, there's been quite a lot. But yeah, when it comes to business partnership, I'd say there is a lot in that process world. And one interesting thing that, to be honest, I'd like your view on, if you've talked about it with other people, is obviously AI makes building software a lot easier. I'm definitely finding the line between what you would have used to have said, you should just go buy Salesforce and then update it, or buy Dynamics and update it to work for you. Now it's almost, in a lot of cases with these customers, it's like, could you just throw it out and build your own cheaper? And then the big one is support, which I think support's solved by AI support. But then you're building specific to your process rather than continually tweaking it. But yeah, what's your view on that? Like the world of CRMs and Salesforce, or even just custom software versus off the shelf?
I think that let's call it vibe coding is enabling in terms of some of the spin up of personalized software for my business in my specific situation. I think it holds a lot of promise. I've yet to see, and maybe I'm not talking to the right people, I've yet to see someone spin up a true personalized CRM for a business that can handle 10 plus employees and doesn't break. And as you say, the support piece is really important. I think it's that vibe coding process is amazing for getting a prototype off the ground or an MVP, something that's usable. And I think it has to be quite narrow and niche. And even in my own experience, and I'm not technical at all, the amount of times that the code refactors itself and it obliterates everything I built. So, and that's more human error or user error more than the technology itself. But I haven't seen anyone personally build and scale something that works across multiple functions, multiple users. So I don't know, maybe you've seen some stuff that is working, but I've seen more just the very, very early stage getting from 0 to 1, and it starts to kind of break it from that point.
Yeah, so we built two, but it was beyond vibe coding. But I think, yeah, you've probably hit the nail on the head there. It's beyond 10 people. And when we've recommended build it yourself, it's you've got a very specific problem that maybe has very specific regulation. And it's the two that we've done have both been like, you've got New Zealand regulation for your problem. You need to solve for that, which is easy enough to do with Salesforce, but the cost, we just stack up the cost. Sorry, I keep on saying Salesforce. I shouldn't be throwing them under the bus. We love Salesforce.
They'll enjoy the PR.
Yeah. But yeah, if you've got a very specific problem to solve in the New Zealand market and you've got your own way of doing it, then get someone like us or get someone in your dev team to build custom and go from there, or invest in that dev team. I think, yeah, my big experience, and it's come from Squirrel, where I think Squirrel's biggest, one of them, not their biggest, but one of their biggest things is they're a tech company. They've built more than a CRM to really solve for New Zealand mortgage broking, which you could have done off the shelf. I was actually part of assessing if we could do it off the shelf, but they've built in so much IP and so much process, so many cool bits and bobs, that having their own CRM was more beneficial than buying off the shelf. That's a company of, I think, 120 plus employees now, really pushing the limits of tech. But because they had a very specific problem to solve, tech was their advantage.
I think there's something in that, right? Like software or CRMs, the big players, they're inherently building for the 80-20 rule. They're trying to build something for the masses, and then ideally you're just tweaking around the edges to make it work for business-specific processes. And that's not always going to work for some folks, and that's why custom is a huge opportunity for agency partners and those within those ecosystems.
And I think Salesforce has also realized it, and so has a few other platforms that I know of. One of them, I don't want to throw people under the bus, one of them is Indice, which is a health platform. Salesforce, I think last month or the month before that, went into their T's and C's that it's much harder to get your data out now. So they know that people are going to try to strip it out and do it themselves. And there are some of these other players as well, just intentionally made it hard to take that step and do it yourself, which I think is pretty rude, unethical, because it's not their data, it's your company's data. Yeah, I think there might be a big Microsoft lawsuit at some point, but
certainly agree with you there, and I think that's not the first we're going to see of it from Salesforce, let alone anyone. There's going to be a lot that will happen in that space. And I think back to your question around like, does custom-built software, is it the right way to go? I think there's arguments for and against, because ultimately the decision that comes for businesses when they think about implementing a platform is, do we change the platform to fit our business processes, or do we change our business process to fit the platform?
That's a really good point.
And there's no right or wrong. It just depends on what are the trade-offs, what are the costs, what are the risks, there's change management, all those considerations. And so, yeah, there's no sort of silver bullet, but I think that's the biggest decision that businesses actually need to make, rather than whether it's off the shelf or custom built.
Yeah, I think I would have always said off the shelf before, but what sort of flipped my thinking is this support model. The support's a big one. You don't want to buy something and then like you're locked in, you've got to pay a ton for support, you can't change anything. Being able to change stuff on the fly and not pay exorbitant amounts of money for it has changed my thinking on that a lot. As you built a product, no product's finished ever, but iterating on it has become easier and easier. But yeah, I think in the past being like, you're just going to get stuck in this product you can never change, that's where I was like, never do it. But now I'm like, yeah, with the way the world's moving, it's so easy to change it on the fly.
Yeah, I think to that point, I think we'll see a pretty big divide, because there are so many businesses that are stuck on, call it SAP or other big enterprise systems. And the pain of ripping out that system is just too much for anyone to think about. And I would imagine, unless you're the owner, most people in those roles who can make those decisions go, I'm going to leave that for the next person. That's not pain that I want to go through. Or I don't want to risk upsetting the apple cart, even if the benefit is incremental for my business and it might take 10 years. I don't know if I want to take on that risk.
Yeah, and I think, so I've hit this a few times, maybe a little bit different, but the analogy I've got is lots of people in the last 10 years were like, we need a data warehouse before we do any machine learning. Data warehouse provides you no value. So ripping out your old piece of software provides you no value until you do the process at the end. So take that analogy. For us, when someone's like, I need a data warehouse, I always say, no, you don't. Let's solve your problem. See if that provides value. So build a little pipe, see if that provides value, and then prove that business case out and say, oh yeah, we do need a data warehouse. Oh no, we don't. We just need to move data around. But on the SAP front, or the big bad CRM front, it's your CRM does all this functionality. Why don't you pick one specific slice of it that it might not be doing that well? Just build an app for that.
Yep.
You'll be able to plug it back into your CRM, see if it's worth it, see if it provides you with what we call like unreal value. And if it does, go ahead. If it doesn't, don't. But you don't have to take that big risk off to pull this whole thing out and drop it back in. And the other AI part of that's been really cool is the context of the whole application. What you think of as a product manager, what you think of as I understand this product, that can be ripped out and passed into the context for this new little piece, which typically you might have to onboard an agency and say, spend 3 months scoping it out, understanding the project, understanding us as a business and where it fits. Trust AI to do that now. The agency should be trusting AI to do that now and take that context and understand that slice as much as possible.
Awesome. Yeah, big fan of the concept of building the AI the application for a specific problem, bolting in it. I think that's a great shout. Awesome. Well, been super fun to chat with you, Taru. Would you be up for a quick fire round to finish us off?
Yeah, hit it.
ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini?
Don't care.
Don't care. No preference.
I use ChatGPT, but I intentionally stay away from the edge of where models are.
Cool. All right.
Try to use them. Do stuff with them. Don't worry about what they're going to do next.
Good on you. Most overhyped AI trend at the moment?
I think we probably talked about it, but I think it's the big bad agent that replaces your company.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm on board with you there. And one New Zealand company that's doing some great work in AI that is flying under the radar.
I've mentioned it once already, but Telos, I think they're absolutely going to change the game. Their value prop is pick up. I think what they're going to get to is take any massive old application, could be like a core banking system, drop it into there, and then that's going to take care of itself. You as a bank now have 200 developers that you can do what you want with. The proposition's crazy when it gets to that scale. Keep an eye on them.
Awesome. And what's your number one recommendation for people to get started in AI? And I don't want to hear just get started. I want to hear specifics.
Say build your own GPT and see if you can connect it up with your own data.
Awesome.
APIs, MCP, really cool place to start.
Wicked. Well, thank you, Taru, for joining us today, and thank you to our listeners. Please subscribe to the channel for weekly episodes to hear more from the people building New Zealand's AI future. Until next time, thanks for tuning in to the AI Corner.